Welcome to the big show live at the games on the Hockey News. Jack Hughes, the golden goal. Team USA takes down Canada, Olympic gold medalists. Andrew McGinnis, Ryan Kennedy, Michael Tracos, soon to be joined by Michael Agello. So much to get to, guys, before we jump into what should be a fantastic show. I will remind you guys, for over 75 years, the Hockey News has been the ultimate hockey fix. Now you can get 12 issues delivered straight to you, packed with stories, stats, and a bonus gift issue to kick things off. Head over to thn.com and get in on the action. Ryan Kennedy, what a game it was. Overtime. Who could have seen that coming? Jack Hughes, the golden goal. Your thoughts on the atmosphere of tonight's game?
I mean, the atmosphere was tremendous. And to me, what was really interesting is, you had the competing chants of USA and Canada, but it almost felt like things were so tense for so long that you didn't necessarily have that din of noise all the time because everyone was holding their breath. Us too, like at one point I felt like a little, sort of like lightheaded. I'm like, I should probably breathe while I watch this game. And it's like, it doesn't even matter who wins for me. I'm writing on it anyways. But I mean, a tremendous crowd and, a great way to end off this tournament.
And, right from the moment the U.S. stepped out there onto the ice, they got booed by what was a very much pro-Canadian crowd. Like, you looked around, and it was pretty much a sea of red out there. So, with Canada really kind of controlling most of the action for most of the night, like once they tied it up, it was, you didn't hear too many, USA chants. But, once Jack Hughes scored, all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a lot of USA fans in the building because it got loud real quick. So, I was there in 2010 in Vancouver. That was the loudest building I've ever been to. This is a close second for sure.
First gold medal for USA at the Olympics in hockey for the men's side since 1980. So much to get down to, guys, in a short period of time for us here. But let's start with what we saw last, the golden goal, Jack Hughes. Look, I could go on and on and on forever about how I'm not a fan of 3-on-3 overtime in a game with magnitude like this. But Jack Hughes found the puck, they made the play, and he ends up beating Binner in the low right side. Michael, what were your thoughts going into overtime and how that play unraveled for Jack Hughes to be the OT hero?
Well, you knew if the U.S. was going to score, it was either going to come from Quinn or Jack Hughes. Like those two are the guys that I thought were going to be the most dangerous. And, 3-on-3 favors a guy like Jack Hughes. And right before he actually scored, Quinn was stopped on just a gorgeous save by Jordan Binnington. And I was thinking, okay, this is looking like shades of Four Nations where Binnington makes the big stop in overtime and then Connor McDavid's going to go down and score. But instead, a terrible turnover, 3-on-1, which can't happen in overtime, definitely can't happen on a 3-on-3. And, Jack Hughes has been just great in this tournament. Like, say what you want about how he's played in the NHL and what he hasn't been able to do in the playoffs. And last year at the Four Nations, he was a guy that very much didn't look like he even belonged on that team. This has been a great tournament for him. The other night, Quinn Hughes was saying that, when he's healthy, his brother, Jack, is arguably one of the most talented and best players in the NHL. And he showed it tonight, like just such a dangerous player and came up huge. And this is going to be a great thing if you're a New Jersey Devils fan because, hopefully he can build on this. And, we know like the injury history with Jack Hughes, if he can stay healthy, like this is the kind of player you're looking at.
Ryan, when you watch that play kind of develop, when you look at the defensive side, whether it be McKinnon or Makar getting caught pinching or the defensive zone there, again, you're used to playing 5-on-5 all game, skips to 3-on-3. But where do you think was the point that Canada made the biggest mistake defensively there that led to that goal?
Yeah, I mean, probably at the offensive blue line that got the whole thing started. And, it was an interesting game because Canada dominated in terms of shots and they carried the play for long stretches, but they also made the most mistakes in the game. And, you think about, Team USA had to kill off a 5-on-3. They did it incredibly well. In fact, they didn't give up a power play goal the entire tournament. So, I mean, you literally can't do any better than that. And I just think that whether it's nerves or whether it's just the fact that it's literally best on best on best, right? Like these are the two best teams in the tournament. And whether it's offensively or defensively, it's the elite of the world. So if you make a mistake, they're going to make you pay for it. And, the play that Zach Werenski made to get the puck to Jack Hughes was just as crucial. And the fact that Jack Hughes absolutely wired that puck and made no mistake about it. I know there's going to be a lot of players on Team Canada who had chances in regulation and couldn't bury them. I mean, they're going to have nightmares, unfortunately.
Let's talk about the goaltending here, guys. Connor Hellebuyck, Jordan Binnington, a low-scoring game here, as expected for all of these closeout games, elimination games, gold medal games. Michael, when you look at this goaltending battle, as you guys just touched on there, Quinn Hughes had that shot, and it's a nice glove save there by Binnington, and there were all kinds of saves throughout, but Hellebuyck had to make a ton of big ones as well due to the shot count difference in the contest. Goaltenders, give us your take.
This was the Connor Hellebuyck redemption tour, Andrew, and Winnipeg Jets fans probably are sighing a huge sigh of relief right now. This is the guy that hasn't been able to get it done in the playoffs. Last year at the Four Nations, he got outplayed by Binnington, to an extent. This tournament, he's been just fantastic. And, 41 saves tonight. You can't count how many times that he really, prevented Canada from actually scoring. And, it should be 6-1. Never mind going to overtime. Like Hellebuyck was just incredible tonight, and he was the difference maker. Jack Hughes is obviously going to go down as the hero, and he gets the golden goal, but he's not in a position to score that golden goal if not for Hellebuyck, who stood on his head. I don't know how many saves, 2 breakaways, one from Macklin Celebrini, another one from Connor McDavid. He was just as good as you could expect. And Ryan mentioned the penalty kill, and who has to be your best penalty killer? It's got to be your goaltender. And to go an entire tournament without allowing a power play goal, that is just incredible. So, deservedly so, the goalie of the tournament.
Ryan, the goalie of the tournament, Connor Hellebuyck, with some huge saves, but you kind of touched on it a bit, and we have to discuss it before we get to all the greatness that went on to lead to the American victory. We have to kind of talk about maybe the melatonin supply that Nathan MacKinnon and Devon Toews are going to need for the next couple weeks of their lives, because it's not one, but 2 wide open nets. Chances were there for Team Canada, but it's not all about the shots. It's a lot about the execution.
Certainly. And it's tough because you're talking about the best players in the world. With Toews, Hellebuyck got a piece of it on his paddle, but you just think if he had shot it a little harder. And then with MacKinnon, it's just he probably had a little more time than he thought he did. And he hits the side of the net, and it's brutal. I mean, the only sort of consolation is both those guys have won the Stanley Cup before, and they won the Four Nations. I know it's the Olympics, it's different. MacKinnon in particular has waited so long to play in the Olympics, but that's hockey, right? These things happen, and they're going to pick themselves up in a day or two. And now, they go back to the Avalanche, a team that has a chance to win the Stanley Cup again. And I'm sure they're going to have all the motivation in the world, but yeah, it's tough because they're both great players. And, Toews had a tough day at the office today, but he had a pretty good tournament overall. So it's unfortunate. Someone's got to wear the goat horns. At least there's a couple of players that can spread around the goat horns.
All right, we got to let you guys go here in a few moments, but just guys, keep it short here. But I need to give credit, of course, to the Americans' gold medal victory. Let's just give some guys credit on the team. Mike, we'll start with you for the Americans leading to this gold medal victory. Who are some guys that impressed you throughout the entire tournament?
Quinn Hughes comes to mind right away. I thought he was incredible all tournament. As I mentioned, he could have had that golden goal if Jordan Binnington didn't slide across and make just an incredible save on him. But, for me, I believe, did he get top honors for defenseman in the tournament as well? he was just as good as you could expect, and bodes well for the Minnesota Wild. But that's a guy that I was looking at. I'll let Ryan talk about maybe Dylan Larkin or someone else.
Yeah, totally. Dylan Larkin was going to be who I was going to talk about. I mean, he's great for the Mall tournament. And then, one of the crucial penalty killers on that 5-on-3, Brock Faber as well as guys like JT Miller. So it's funny, like everybody questioned the American roster coming into this tournament. But, a guy like JT Miller was huge on the PK, and Vince Trocheck had a great game. It's those guys where it's like sometimes you just need some really good two-way players to make sure that everybody's in the right position and you don't make mistakes that could cost you. So, yeah, but Dylan Larkin, again, and, his line with Jack Hughes and Tage Thompson was great when they needed it the most. Now he's a champion, and he might even make the playoffs with Detroit this year, which would be the first time since his rookie season. So that'll be fun to watch too.
Once again, 2-1 victory. USA takes gold over Canada. Jack Hughes, OT hero, minute and 41 seconds into the extra frame. Ryan Kennedy, Michael Tracos, all of your work, of course, thehockeynews.com. Thanks so much, guys. Let's bring in the American. Michael Agello, you got the flag behind you. As I just mentioned, minute and 41 into overtime. USA captures gold. Take it away, Mike.
Well, thankfully it wasn't longer, because I think I would have been hitting the bar. It was just that was a game where, and I mentioned to our producer and handlers who have done a fantastic job all tournament, that this echoed 2010 in Vancouver, where Ryan Miller was the only reason that the USA got to overtime, because he stood on his head, and then Crosby scores the golden goal. In this instance, the U.S. played really well in the first period, and they had a 1-0 lead. But second period and third period, Canada just absolutely dominated. They were winning puck battles. They seemed to be, as Eddie Olczyk on the NBC broadcast said, they were on their toes and the Americans were on their heels. And you could tell it by the shots. You could tell it by the zone possession. You could tell it by the quality of the chances that Hellebuyck had to stop, especially on that 5-on-3. But there were other instances. Really, Canada, if you're talking about deserving to win the game based on chances, they probably deserved to win the game. But, the U.S. held on, barely. A double minor power play, which they really fumbled it except for one good chance. And then Jack Hughes takes a penalty and gives Canada a power play, and they almost score, and then getting it to overtime. And, we can criticize the 3-on-3 overtime. We know it was flawed. I don't like it. It's meant to end games quickly. I don't know if we wanted this game to go to double or triple overtime, because frankly, I think I would have had a coronary if we have gone that far. But it was an exciting game. The crowd in Milan seemed really into it. Michael and Ryan were there. It didn't sound to me as pro Canada as they were making it out. Because there were definitely loud chants of USA at times. So I think it was more of a battle. But then in the end, I'm sure the Canadian fans were, very disappointed at the result. And then the US fans were going crazy. And the one poignant video that I saw was a crying father of Johnny Gaudreau, who was in the crowd with his wife, and the NBC broadcast made it very plain that Johnny Gaudreau would have been on this team had he not been tragically killed. And his jersey was in the American locker room, and they brought his parents over there, and I'm sure he was overjoyed for what would have been his teammates, but I'm sure they were also really saddened that he wasn't there to celebrate in the victory.
Absolutely. Great point there, Mike. And we'll tell you, the bond between Team America and the Canadians, these guys are together for a short period of time, but a very, very tight bond between them. I'll just say, look, And I hope that everybody can understand when I say this, Mike. And USA are the winners here. And I'll tell you, if it was Finland versus Slovakia, I would be upset about 3-on-3 overtime. Right? Yeah. It's not about the loss, who won, who lost. It's just in general. It's a shame. We are so privileged to have watched such an intense hockey game. And a minute and 41 due to a 3-on-3 skills competition, the game ends. But Jack Hughes is a very skilled player, and he wins it. So we didn't get your take on the goaltending. We talked about it a few moments ago, and obviously Hellebuyck got the win for Team USA. Wyatt says Binnington versus Connor Hellebuyck, best goalie rivalry since ... I know you're a history guy, Mike. What do you have for us here?
Well, if you're talking internationally, I would probably say Ken Dryden versus Vladislav Tretiak in 72. That was, and now the funny thing is that Dryden never played well internationally, but he did play well enough in Game 8 to enable the Canadians to beat Russia and win that tournament on the Paul Henderson goal. If you're talking about recent Olympics, I think that you would probably have to say Miller versus Luongo in 2010. Miller was, I believe he won MVP of not of the tournament, but he won the best goalie of the tournament. But, the Canadians switched from Marty Brodeur to Luongo, and Luongo didn't make any mistakes, and Canada won. There was no real rivalry in 2014 because Carey Price led Canada to gold, and he was fantastic. But yeah, no, I would probably say Dryden versus Tretiak, and then maybe Miller versus Luongo as a close second.
When it comes to defensive play, and when I say this, I'm not necessarily just speaking about blue liners. Mm-hmm. Obviously, a low-scoring victory, Michael. So who are some guys that you can give your respect to on the American side for doing a good job of keeping the Canadians to the outside and stepping up in big moments? I think about, McAvoy or Matthews? One of those two were literally inside the net on one of those plays. Who stood out to you the most to make those great defensive plays?
Well, McAvoy definitely. I didn't think it was the strongest of Quinn Hughes' performances. I know that he was a target and should have been of the Canadian forecheckers. He was really laying it. Tom Wilson and Hagel were laying it on thick because they know that the American offense goes through Quinn Hughes, and you could see how they didn't have any kind of puck possession like they had in previous games. And I think that was because Hughes was sort of like looking over his shoulder at Tom Wilson. But McAvoy, I thought he was, solid, and, he threw a few checks, but I thought he was steady playing with Hughes. And even though he didn't have the strongest of tournaments because he was playing on the third pairing, on the game-winning goal, it was a Zach Werenski play where Makar got stuck at the blue line, lost the puck battle. Werenski goes in and then feeds Hughes for the winner. That was a risk that you probably have to take in a 3-on-3 overtime because there were some people watching that game that were upset that the Americans lost the opening faceoff because you get puck possession in overtime, as we've seen 3-on-3 in the NHL. You may never get the puck back. So the opening faceoff was extremely important, and you could see that because Boldy and McDavid were practically running over the referee, dropping the puck. So, but yeah, I would say McAvoy with an honorable mention to Werenski, and I have to say, Austin Matthews was phenomenal defensively in this game. They matched him. Basically, Canada wanted McDavid out there against him, and he pretty much matched him. And on the Boldy goal, he won the puck battle and the race to the puck along the boards to spring Boldy, and then Boldy made the incredible individual effort where he dumps it past Makar and Taves and beats Binnington. I'm sorry, the people out there that are criticizing Jordan Binnington right now for the Canadian loss don't know hockey or just are overwrought.
There's still people doing that. There's still people.
I've seen a few on social media.
Wow.
No, please. The Boldy goal was a breakaway. You know what it is in comparison to watching McDavid have a breakaway and Celebrini have a breakaway, and it was breakaway after breakaway and opportunities in Hellebuyck other than the Makar goal which was off a face-off loss. I mean, he was perfect, and he probably needed to be. I mean, Jim Craig in 1980 was near perfect, even though he gave up 3 goals to the Russians. I mean, you need great goaltending, as Team Canada has proved over the years, and I think Team USA proved it today.
Well, I'll say something that maybe a lot of Canadians aren't saying right now. Cale Makar had an impact on all 3 goals that were out there tonight. And you know, that first goal for Matt Boldy, Michael, I'll tell you what, I'm a Boldy fan. I like watching him play in the show. But when you look at that goal, when you've got 2 defensemen that get split the way that they did and kind of whacking at the puck, you know, I thought to myself, if Drew Doughty's out there, Boldy gets leveled, or his arm gets chopped off with a slash or something. You just don't let that goal take place.
But that might be a symptom of what we talked about on previous shows, Andrew. We said Makar and Taves were overplayed in this tournament, because I don't think the level of trust for Parayko and Sanheim and Harley was there. We could trust Taves and Makar because they're one of the best pairings in the league and they know each other's moves. But you know, tonight, I mean, I'm checking the minutes here. Taves played 22:04. Makar played 24:32. I mean,
yeah, but I'm sorry, Michael, but I'll say this, and like I'm refraining myself because it happened, whatever happened. But for both teams, I will say there were probably numerous calls, slashing, breakaway. When McDavid ran into Hellebuck and didn't even make a move, you could have called a slash or something there. And for the fact that to just let Boldy dance right through you as if it's a non-contact sport, that is what I thought was a little bit. It's like, I'm going to give him his respect for the goal he scored, but for him to split the D like that, I don't know if that was because of their fatigue, Mike. I just think that they didn't lay the body. They didn't play it right. I can't look at that and blame their exhaustion for that play.
I mean, that's a valid point. I mean, of course, the officiating in this game was, well, inconsistent is to be kind. I mean, there were so many things that could have been called in the first period, but yet that the penalty that was called was sort of ticky at the end of the first period. Was sort of at the first period. It was sort of ticky tack. It was not really a call that should have been made. I mean, if there was a call that should have been made, it was when Tom Wilson freight trained Dylan Larkin behind the net. I mean, he left his skates. That would have been, I think, due a 2-minute penalty for a high hit, but they didn't call that. But then they called something that was, and I thought the second penalty that gave Canada a 5-on-3 on, I think it was on McAvoy, I thought was sort of a weak call. And then, you know, I mean,
you got to watch the freeze frame. If anything, I would call that, Michael, over the Jack Hughes high stick. Truly, okay. Like it was, yeah. I think it was a slash, a hold, a hook, probably all on one play.
Now you couldn't dispute the double minor to Sam Bennett because Jack Hughes was spitting chiclets out of his mouth, you know, and showing the referee his bloody hand and his 2 teeth that were there. But you know, Jack Hughes will be given credit for a long time, and it's not going to be like Bob Baun skating on a broken leg and scoring an overtime goal in 1964 for the Leafs, but getting 2 teeth knocked out and then scoring the gold medal winning overtime game will be something that'll be celebrated in American hockey circles for a long time.
And the placement of that shot as well, you know, bottom right corner. You've got so many guys these days still that will go to try and pick the top side, right? Mm-hmm. The highlight reel, perfect spot goal, but he goes low, and you could almost see him celebrating before the puck even hit the, you know, the back netting. That's how confident he was about that play. The McDavid sort of rush in overtime. It's one of those scenarios where if you end up scoring on that, everybody loves you, and you're Connor McDavid, so nobody can blame you. But as you touched on earlier, 3-on-3 overtime is so much about possession. Mm-hmm. And so he tried to take on practically, let's say, 2.5 guys, and, you know, doesn't really get a shot off. And, you know, one of those things you look back on, you think would have been real nice to maintain possession. But then when I say that out loud, I think to myself as well, earlier in the game, I'm kind of calling for those guys to be a bit more selfish, right? Like, so during the 5-on-3 for Canada, I think McDavid and McKinnon combined for 0 shots. And Celebrini had probably 2 or 3 grade A's in the slot that he painted the glass with, which I feel so sorry for him, but he's going to be back there many, many, many times as well. So, I mean, there's one of those things where you can look back on chances, and whether it's Devon Toews or whether it's Nathan McKinnon, they just didn't get the job done.
Yeah, and the best opportunity on that 5-on-3 was probably the McDavid feed to Celebrini that went through his legs. I mean, had he been able to get his stick on the puck, he probably had the whole left side of the net open. So, yeah, you know, I mean, again, the hockey is a game of inches. Had Makar been able to keep the puck in the zone instead of losing the puck battle to Werenski, he's got McKinnon and McDavid deep in the zone with only one American player back. So, I mean, it was in retrospect, obviously, with it going the other way and Hughes scoring, you know, you'd like to have it back. But I mean, and we know that plus minus is a flawed statistic, but when arguably the 2 best players on your team are -2, and that's Connor McDavid and that's Nathan McKinnon. Mm-hmm. You have to say, yeah, they missed Sidney Crosby because Sidney Crosby would have been out there, but I agree. I don't know who was on social media said, well, Sidney Crosby deserves a lot of credit for being selfless, for not wanting to go out there at 60 or 70% and not play. I mean, in retrospect, I think he's kicking himself. He probably thinks he could have done a better job at 70% than some of the players that were out there at 100%.
Well, I'm happy you said that, because there were questions asked to John Cooper saying, hey, would you bring him out at that 70, as you mentioned, right? And you know where I think they could have used him the most? Power play.
Power play.
And how much do you need to move? How much do you need to, like, his veteran presence, his movement, his selections? I think that's where he probably would have been utilized the most, which is funny because, like, the selfless act and John Cooper saying what he's saying. But at the end of the day, part of me as a hockey fan is happy the game wasn't decided through special teams, even though it was decided through 3-on-3.
Right.
Crosby would have been a factor on those 5-on-3. But you know what? I will say great kills by both the teams. Like, great kills by both of them. But, you know, Michael, maybe you could help me out on this, because I've been talking about this the past couple shows. And one thing, and I understand it's the best against the best, right? So it's easy for me to say this, but you know how, like, Nathan McKinnon, he knows he's the guy on the Avalanche. Connor McDavid knows he's the guy on the Edmonton Oilers. Mm-hmm. So when they're on the power play, they're just buzzing around, holding onto the puck, doing whatever they want to do. And you can address this for both teams as well, or for every team. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that there's somewhat of a deferring or not wanting to be a puck hog when it comes to international hockey? Because as much as that OT rush from Connor McDavid, where I'm like, oh man, I wish you held on to the puck a little bit there, I almost think sometimes there wasn't enough selfishness on their side.
Well, I know from the American side and the NBC broadcast, Eddie Olczyk pointed this out. The Matthew Tkachuk opportunity in the first period where he passed instead of shooting, that was one instance. The Austin Matthews opportunity that I think was on the power, or where he had it in front and he had Binnington one-on-one, but he had Matthew Tkachuk at the side of the net, and Devon Toews tied him up. But had he known that Toews was going to tie up Tkachuk, he wouldn't have made the pass. But he had the goalie there. You try to beat the goalie. Instead, you're trying to pass it into the net, and yes, I think that the problem is you have a bunch of alphas out there, a bunch of top dogs, and, Austin Matthews is the sniper for the Maple Leafs. So, he's 9 times out of 10, he shoots the puck. It's not like you have Mitch Marners out there who are pass first guys. I mean, the one thing that's surprising here is Jack Hughes has a reputation of being more of a playmaker than a shooter, but he scored a big goal against Slovakia, and he scored the biggest goal for Team USA against Team Canada.
Dan, thank you for being here with us live on the big show at the games. USA takes it 2-1, gold medal game. Jack Hughes, overtime hero. Dan says from today's overtime win to 46 years ago when I was at those games, so proud of how they competed.
Mhm.
Dan, great stuff. Great comment. Thank you for being here with us. And it was a fantastic game. It was an unbelievable game. And, this is what we wanted, Mike. This is what we asked for to start. And, it was a pleasure doing so many shows and breaking down everything. But every single person that talks hockey, whether you're a podcast, whether you're, television or radio, whatever you're talking about, this was the matchup that we were waiting to see. When it comes to the overall kind of heroes and X factors, I was asking Ryan, Mike T, and yourself throughout the tournament or prior to the tournament. We had some Larkin talk. Quinn Hughes is obviously Quinn Hughes. Boldy, kicks off the scoring with that play. But let's talk about some unsung heroes that won't make the local newspaper that you might be seeing, Mike, but you think these guys deserve some credit.
Well, for the Americans, I would say Tage Thompson, and I'm being a little selfish because I cover him with the Sabres. I mean, he scored 3 goals in the tournament. His playing status was in question after blocking a shot in the game against Slovakia. He didn't seem slowed today. He had a few opportunities. He's never been the strongest defensive player, and he's never been the most physical player, but he's a big guy and he played physically. And I think he scored a few key goals that helped the U.S., get to the point where they could win it in this game. I mean, you can't say that they're unsung when you're talking about goaltenders and especially Hellebuck, who was the goalie of the tournament and the named the best goalie of the tournament. I'm sorry. I mean, I know I may be going against, I think Jordan Binnington was fantastic in this tournament. I really do. And, the thing is, all 3 goals today were perfect. I mean, perfect. Boldy's goal was the great individual effort, but he puts it behind Binnington, going sort of, he's going to Binnington's left and he puts it behind him. The Makar shot was perfect in between the blocker and the pad. And you just said about the Jack Hughes goal. I mean, I don't think these goalies can be, put at fault for the goals that, you as a fan, you want them to make the stops, but they're human. They can't make every one. Otherwise, we'd be watching this game for the next 6 days. It'd be 0-0 if they were perfect. But yeah, I think that I think Binnington had a great tournament. And Mark Stone, who I mentioned on a previous podcast, he's not the fastest guy. He might be the smartest player on the ice. And, he didn't, today, 1 shot on goal, only played 15 minutes. He wasn't a force today, but throughout the tournament, he made his mark. So, if we're limiting ourselves to these 2 teams, I would say those players deserved a little mention.
Connor Bedard, Mark Scheifele, Noah Dobson, Matthew Schaefer.
Yeah.
We can go down the list here.
Bouchard.
Let's beat Evan Bouchard. Let's beat everybody to the chase on this here, because this, I can promise you, for the next several days, especially until the NHL resumes, this will be the topic of discussion. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, my 2 cents are this. It's very, very difficult to take shots at defensemen when you lose a game 2-1, right? Mm-hmm. And when you look at the depth scoring that wasn't there, so I should say probably the lack of depth scoring, it's hard to look at defensemen. So, would you take this guy over that defenseman, that guy over that? Well, it's hard when it was a 2-1 game. One thing that you have mentioned multiple times, and I always respect your opinions, has been the utilization and the minutes for these players. Mm-hmm. And because this game didn't necessarily have that physical aspect to it, and when I say it didn't really, I'd say that probably expired with 5 minutes to go in the first, and they just played hockey out there. Could a Matthew Schaefer or a Connor Bedard been impactful in today's game?
I think Schaefer more than Bedard, because Schaefer would have provided another mobile, offensively creative defenseman on the line along the lines of Makar. I mean, I'm sure Cooper would have been scared of his inexperience, but I've seen this kid play 3 or 4 times. He doesn't seem phased. So, I mean, you could spot him, you could put him on the third pairing and have him on your second power play, and I think he wouldn't have hurt you. And, like Drew Doughty in 2010, I think he was only 19 years old or 20 years old when the tournament in Vancouver happened. And as the tournament went along, they played him more and more and more. I just don't think the mobility of the Canadian blue line with Sanheim and Parayko and Harley was up to the snuff compared to the U.S. I mean, on the U.S. side, I mean, they let Lane Hudson off. They let Jason Robertson off, Cole Caulfield off. That's a lot of scoring. That's a lot of offense. And, probably in 4 years, all 3 of them or 2 of them will be on this team. So, I mean, and I also think that the Americans also didn't play the right goaltender. Instead, should have played Ottinger instead of Swayman. So there were decisions in tournament that were questionable by both sides. But I think, I'm not going to go out on. I'll go out on a limb and say the roster in 4 years will be dramatically different, and maybe the mentality of the decision making will be changed. All I know is that whenever Canada loses at the World Junior level or at the Olympic level, there's a summit to basically investigate what was done that was wrong. And I don't think they did much wrong. They got to the gold medal game and they were tied in overtime, and it was 1 shot.
Well, one thing I do know that will be very important, I'm sure all of our loyal viewers will know as well, is that both the American and Canadian hockey programs, they value who goes to the World Hockey Championships in the spring every year. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see who goes over the next handful of years, not just this summer or this spring or next year or the year after that. It's that pride of playing with the Maple Leaf on your chest and thinking, hey, any chance I can get to wear that jersey, I should do it. And there's one guy I was a little bit nervous to mention because some might not agree with this, but he scores pretty much every second night for the Boston Bruins, and his name is Morgan Geekie. And nobody would have thought of him before this season, but what a goal scorer he was. Anthony, thank you very much for being here with us. Second greatest hockey game in history. And honestly, I don't think it's even close. What a statement that is. Second greatest game. I mean, what a tight game. Let's go to the tournament MVP. Connor McDavid, tournament MVP and best forward of the tournament. We talked about Hellebuyck being named goaltender of the tournament. Look, it's, you feel horrible for the guy because he was the Conn Smythe winner, right? In one of the years that they lost. And, he didn't even go out for it on the ice. And whatever you think about him, like, the guy's heart's broken. He's crying in the locker room and they want him to go out on the ice for a Conn Smythe trophy winner. But what did you see from Connor McDavid throughout this tournament? We know how great he is, Michael. What did you see from McDavid?
I think he left it all out there. I mean, I don't think he could do much more than he did. I mean, the only thing, just like, he got to 7 games with a Edmonton Oilers team that I thought was incredibly flawed. He got to another Stanley Cup final with them that they had similar flaws. I mean, he's the best player or the second best player in the league. So, I don't think you can fault him. I think this, maybe it's a cop out. I think it was a team loss, just like it was a team victory for the Americans. You can't really just label Connor McDavid a loser because he won the Conn Smythe when he lost the Stanley Cup, and he won the most valuable player of the tournament when Canada lost the gold medal. It's, I'll take Connor McDavid on my team any day.
Well, you're going to think about that Connor McDavid breakaway with barely a shot off. Celebrini towards the end of his shift barely gets a strong shot off. Devon Toews on the doorstep. Nathan McKinnon on the doorstep. No dice, no execution, and 2-1 OT hero Jack Hughes gets the job done. What an exciting game. What an exciting tournament. It was so much fun working with you, Michael. We worked together last year during the playoffs, but getting to work together every day. And, of course, having Ryan Kennedy and Michael Tracos with us in Milan. So great getting quotes and coverage from them, of course, thehockeynews.com. People can still, of course, always find your work, thehockeynews.com as well. Before we wrap up, any closing thoughts about this game, the bronze, or any game that you want to mention across the Olympics 2026 men's side?
Well, first, it's been a pleasure doing the shows with you as well, Andrew. And I know that, right now, Team USA and people in the United States are extremely happy and people in Canada are extremely bummed. I hope that this doesn't devolve into like the political realm, but I know it will. And I hope that that doesn't take away from the product on the ice and how great it was.
Absolutely. A great hockey game is what I will say about tonight's game. A great hockey game between two great teams. And once again, a minute and 41 into overtime, Jack Hughes, the OT hero, as Team USA takes gold. This has been The Big Show live at the games. Michael Agello, Ryan Kennedy, and Michael Tracos joining me today. I am Andrew McGinnis. Thank you so much for following our coverage all tournament long right here on the Hockey News. All the best, and we'll see you next time.